Good morning and good afternoon, and welcome to the Weekend Wellness Hour. Today, we have very nice guest, Dr. Nadine Kelly, who I met a couple years ago through a podcasting fellowship course with Seth Godin, and we resonated. I was really interested in what she does because she helps people in a very unique way. And she really considers the multiple dimensions of health when she wants to help someone. So thank you so much for joining us, Nadine. Really appreciate having you here today.
It's a real pleasure to be here, Amy. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. And love for you to share with us your unique background and kind of how you went from one career to building and another career that's helping people in a neat way.
Well, it's a long story, but I will try to be as succinct as possible. But I was a practicing pathologist, and that means that I did my medical school training. At the time of my training after medical school, it was a 5-year residency program for my specialty of pathology, and then I subspecialized even further with an additional year. Then I practiced in a busy community setting for 7 years. During that time, it became more and more apparent to me that while I was helping people, I felt this urge that I was trying to ignore for a long time, that there surely had to be something more than getting to a patient when they had a problem or pain point and wanting to fix the problem. Wasn't there more we could do to promote prevention and health before that? And I had also been a yoga practitioner myself to manage my own stress. And I was also practicing martial arts, all
Wow.
mind body type connection things. And so to be quite frank, I had to really be in trouble myself with my own health before I decided to stop practicing. So I was diagnosed with clinical depression. And at that time, it was a real reckoning. It was an aha moment, and it was time to decide, what do I do from here?
Yeah.
Medicine was not making me happy in the long run, but I really wanted to use the spirit of why I went into medicine to continue to serve. I didn't know what that was. And so I turned to yoga to deepen and find more answers for myself. And so I walked into a local studio one evening, wanting to quiet myself and give myself time and space to figure out what I needed to do next. And the owner of the studio at that time
Mhm.
said, "We're having a yoga teacher training program. How about
Yeah.
join?" And I thought he had
Ah.
lost his mind. And I thought I was losing my mind, even
Mhm.
listening to this. And so I said, "Well, what do you mean yoga teacher? It wasn't even on my radar."
Yeah.
And he said, "Look, you don't have to use it to teach. You can use it as you want to deepen your own practice. Learn more about yoga, learn more about yourself. What are your values? What's meaningful to you through the practice?" Halfway through the training program, after I took this plunge, a beautiful, mature woman walked in and taught a class unlike anything I had really
Mm.
experienced up until then. Up until then, yoga had been feeding, yes, into my looking for quiet, but I was really using a lot to be physically healthy.
Mhm.
And so a lot of the classes were geared towards the more physical aspects. But this class was quiet, it was slow, there weren't a lot of moves, it wasn't complicated at all. And I thought, light bulb moment, this is what I want to do. I want to take yoga to people who don't necessarily feel that they can do yoga or they're supposed to, and serve a specific population. So right at the end of my 6 months, I knew I wanted to teach yoga to make it accessible to everybody. So I started working in assisted living facilities
Wow.
and community centers. I knew the yoga studio wasn't for me, but I wanted to
Mhm.
go find my people
Yeah.
out in the community. And so
Mhm.
that turned into finding and building a community of what I call wise women, so mature women of differing physical abilities and levels. I've seen lots of chronic illnesses where they may not have been able to go to a traditional yoga class because they're not young and skinny and flexible and all those shoulds
Yeah.
they were putting on themselves.
Yeah.
But I could teach them in chairs. I could teach
Mhm.
them in a pool. I could teach them on the mat if they wanted to get up and down, and with lots of props to help
Got
make the
it.
practice accessible. So I feel like I'm really serving and fulfilling my purpose
Mhm.
here with the work I'm
Yeah.
doing.
It sounds like you're changing the way we view how yoga needs to be done.
Mhm.
Because if we think about it, we all have different needs. And, for certain people, you can do it the way yoga is traditionally done in a studio. But there's this huge second segment of the population that can't do that, or maybe don't feel comfortable doing that, or don't have the ability to get to that location. But you can address it. You're coming to them and meeting them where they're at and giving them this opportunity to improve their health, to change the way their body moves. And it's really powerful that you're able to do that.
And what I really learned
Mhm.
for myself and what I want to carry to my students is that yoga is not just a physical practice. I
Yeah.
know we casually say mind and body, but it really is this beautiful place where, first of all, it's a practice. So you
Mhm.
get to come to a safe space
Yeah.
and try things, learn about yourself. It's very mental, emotional work as well. You get to learn about your own triggers. You get to learn about your own narratives, the stories that you're telling yourself that are not helpful. You also learn about what I consider to be true self care. We think of self care as, oh, I'm going to go for take a for a little walk, or I'm going to take a nice bath, or light some candles, or get a massage.
Mhm.
That's great,
Yeah.
but that's also pretty just on the surface
Yeah.
type things you can do. True self care is knowing how to self regulate, how to take care of yourself in your relationships, how to set up
Mhm.
healthy boundaries, how to know when it's important to say something to stand up for yourself, or when it's important to stay quiet, when it's important to listen, how it's important to practice empathy, self compassion, compassion for others. So I really look at yoga as a very powerful platform to really improve our overall health and
Mhm.
life beyond the physical practice, which is also important, yes, for joints and for strength. And I absolutely bring in my medical training in there
Yeah.
because, as we'll get into later, I know you wanted to
Mhm.
talk about this. Why is it
Yeah.
different for women? We
Yeah.
have specific needs, especially as our bodies age. And so
Mhm.
I try to address those in the physical practice, but I
Yeah.
also like to address the mental and emotional and social well being too.
Yeah. So I'm curious that when you're talking about, it was your own health that spurred you onto looking for other options.
Mhm.
Did you feel over time your own health improve and shift? And now maybe that diagnosis isn't something that's just stuck with you, but maybe you're able to care for yourself and, broaden yourself without just that label.
Yes. It was a wake-up call. It
Yeah.
doesn't define me, and
Good.
I'm definitely aware of maybe I have tendencies
All
towards
right.
depression.
Yeah.
So how do I take good care of myself?
Mhm.
And so I listen to my body and I give myself what I need in the moment. So one of the very important things for me personally for my mental well-being is physical activity.
Yeah.
When I think back to sitting in my office behind a microscope for hours,
Oof.
it's no wonder my mental health was so affected because I was in a chair for hours and hours and hours at a time.
Yeah.
And what the yoga allows me to do is be with people
Mm.
and to help people individually and help them discover things that they need for themselves and to take good care of themselves, to take responsibility for their aging bodies. And it also just helps me know my own triggers. So if
Yeah.
I've been sitting too long or if I'm starting to feel irritable, it's not necessarily that I need to eat something. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
thirsty. Maybe it is. But
Mhm.
a lot of the time, it's that I need to get up and go take a walk. I need to go
Mhm.
step outside, even if it's just to stand in the fresh air,
Yeah.
even if it's just to walk down the block.
Yeah. Absolutely. And kind of as we touch on this, since you have this medical background, with the pathology, with having this yoga experience, what are some of the dimensions of health that you look at when you're trying to either improve your own health or that of others and the students that you work with?
So important not to limit ourselves.
Yeah.
I'm passionate about my work because I am a woman and because of my background. I have always was grown up to respect my elders. I've always had more of an affinity and of
Passionate about my
comfort
work
level
because I
with more mature people. My mom says I'm an old soul. And so it's no mistake that this is the population I just really love and I love to help and I can relate to. And I learned from, and I can derive hope from, and wisdom, and so much knowledge. And so my path took me along, you know, I knew there was something more. And
Mm,
so it was the medicine, and then it was the
yeah.
yoga, and then I became a health coach. And through my health coaching, I was asked to be a life coach for a women's health initiative program. And I'll never forget in that program, that's where I learned about the multiple dimensions of health. And it was
Oh, okay.
another aha moment
Yeah.
because it wasn't just mental health and physical health. It was, so there's six dimensions I learned about.
Okay.
It's social health, emotional, mental, physical, intellectual, and spiritual. What does that mean? There You're more than your body. As women, again, we have these pressures in our society to not take up much space,
Yeah.
to be quiet, to be
Yeah.
polite, to suppress a lot, and also to define our health in terms of pure numbers. What's my dress size and what does it say on the scale? And how many calories am I counting to put into my body? While those things are important, I absolutely advocate physical health and screening and all that from my medical training.
Yeah.
We limit ourselves thinking if I handle those things, everything else is okay, or I don't know about those things. Because when I was at the peak of my practice, I was the skinniest I've ever been. I looked good on the outside. I had my husband, the beautiful house, the picket fence, the two kids, the dog, but
Yeah.
I was dying on the
Oh,
inside. My relationships were suffering, even though I
yeah.
didn't think they were. And so that's the social health
Mhm.
and my emotional well-being, my mental well-being, all those things, they're all connected. So
Mhm.
it's really important. It's impossible to make them all perfect,
Yeah.
but it's absolutely we absolutely do ourselves a service, the best service. The We take the best care of ourselves when we're aware. We increase our awareness of those different arenas. So what does it mean to be a socially healthy human being? It means that you feel a sense of purpose. You
Mm,
contribute to your community.
yeah.
You think about how you interact with the people in your life. You care for others. You show compassion. Our emotional health means that we allow ourselves to know that we have emotions. They don't define us, but we have them. We're human. And so we allow ourselves to express them appropriately. Allow ourselves to express them without hurting the other person. We show compassion to the other person. We learn how to express and feel flexibility with those emotions. Mental well being, how confident are you? What does it mean to be confident? What does it mean to take good care of your mental health? How do you manage your stress? We're supposed to have stress.
Yeah.
We are, but
Yeah.
there's a tipping point where it's too little and it's too much. So you figure out for yourself how that evolves, how to manage your stress appropriately, and how to figure out when you're in trouble before it's too late, before the pot boils over.
Mm,
Our physical health for women, as we age, we do not have the same muscle mass as men. So it's
mhm.
really important for us for our bone density, bone health, to prevent falls, to prevent fractures, which tend to lead to a lot of morbidity and mortality with the older population as we experience falls. So how can we prevent those things? We prevent them
Yeah.
by eating properly. We prevent them by getting enough sleep, by making sure we manage our stress, by making sure we do some sort of body resistance exercise. We work on our balance, we work on our flexibility. So all of those things are specific women things issues. And hormonally, I'll tell you right now, I'm heavier than I have been in a little while, but I'm having hormonal changes. So
Yeah.
instead of beating myself up all the time, and believe me, it's a work in progress
Mhm.
because I'm a person and I see things still in our society like I'm supposed to look like that, but I don't. But I also
Yeah.
understand that my body's changing. So I'm
Yeah.
going to have to figure out how to manage that. And for me right now, that means more strength training, quite frankly. I need to
Mhm.
up that.
Yeah.
Intellectual health. Here's something we don't think about very often.
Mm-mm.
Brain food, how you take care of your brain, even how you approach your intellectual health. Are you a curious person? Are you a person who's just thinking black and white? Is it my way or the highway? Well, those
Yeah.
things, people are so scared of dementia, and there are lots of types of dementia and lots of pathways to that with physiological explanations. But one thing I can tell you is that having an open mind and being willing to learn new things and having a growth mindset extremely important for your intellectual well-being
Yeah.
and for creating neuroplasticity, more resilient memory, and helping to prevent as much as you can what you can control in terms of dementia if you can. Okay.
Right.
So intellectual well-being, so super important. Spiritual is a very loaded word. It's not that we want anyone not to practice their religion. And because I teach the population I teach, I'm very sensitive to that because a lot of my
Mhm.
ladies are churchgoers.
Yeah.
I'm not getting in the way of your religious belief. By all means, have your religious belief,
Mhm.
whatever that is. Okay. So just as long as you feel a sense of purpose and you know there's something bigger than you and you feel connected to something and you have some type of devotional or spiritual practice that fulfills you. So when we're aware of all those dimensions, we can make adjustments, learn about ourselves, learn what we need, and try to be a bigger, healthier person than
Yeah.
we think. One thing I will tell you in pathology
Mhm.
over the years, I saw a lot of fine outcomes, I saw a lot of benign things, but I
Yeah.
also saw a lot of unexpected.
Really.
We had a lot of so we look at slides under the microscope to make
Mhm.
diagnoses. That's what a pathologist does,
Mm.
and blood work. And yes, we do some autopsies. That's not the majority. But I saw a lot of stuff in my time, in my
Yeah.
training and in my community practice where life is tenuous. And so we really have a responsibility to live our lives to their fullest while we can and to be the healthiest and best versions of ourselves by trying to look at all of these areas of our lives.
Yeah. The thing too is I'm curious when you were doing pathology, I don't know how much interaction you had with the actual patients and if you got to learn a little bit about their history and if you could correlate that sometimes with the pathology, if they were really struggling in a lot of these dimensions of health that you just went through with the outcome, or even if they bolstered up those dimensions that you just mentioned, if their outcome improved. Did you have any, interaction like that?
I didn't while I was practicing, but I
Hmm.
certainly did during my yoga practice, during
Okay.
the time I've been teaching, because I've been teaching yoga now for 9 years. And what I've noticed is a very simple example. She's a woman I'll never forget. She came to the program and she was a retiree. She had
Hmm.
retired about 2 years earlier, and she came to our program because she was looking to lose weight. Now, so that's
Okay.
a symptom.
Yeah.
I'm really into root cause and not symptom relief.
Yeah.
Okay, not the quick pill. So digging deeper, what happened was she had a not uncommon issue. which was
Okay.
a loss of a sense of purpose.
Oh,
Her
yeah.
identity was tied into her work.
Okay.
The work was no longer.
Yeah.
So she said, I just didn't know what to do with myself. So
Mhm.
I had nowhere to go. So I
Right.
started feeling kind of hopeless
Mhm.
and started waking up late, going to bed super late, feeling
Mm.
aimless,
Yeah.
eating out of boredom in the house. And so she put steadily put on this weight. Then she started to have knee issues. And so you see how those things are all intertwined, and a domino effect happens, because if you're
Mhm.
not feeling like there's a reason to be here and people need you and you can give, you have something to contribute, that's so detrimental to your emotional and mental well-being.
Yeah.
And then it shows up in your body because you're not necessarily attending to, well, maybe let me try to figure something else out. Maybe I heard another woman I interviewed a while ago who had had a very successful career, and it was so successful and lasted so long. Her identity was tied up in that too. And then she had this moment where she was not in that profession anymore. And so she had to figure out, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And so what she did was figure out, it wasn't the job. It was, what did I do in that job? Why
Mhm.
was I good at it? What did I
Yeah.
like about it? What are my skills? What are my talents? And when she sat down and made a list, then she found a new purpose, a new place to go find new adventures to
Yeah.
apply those skills.
I think that's a great thing to do for anyone, is to really discover yourself, figuring out what are your innate skills or something that you've developed that's that's consistent in all aspects of your life, whether it's work, relationships, your hobbies, like what are those consistencies that really bring in that energy that allow you to shine, that people say, oh, you're radiating when you're doing this. I think that's a great thing to do because it will help us not tie ourselves to an identity related to our job or career.
hmm Or even something else, like I come upon, and I was able to deal with this myself because I'd been thinking about it and I'd seen it in my wise women, empty nest syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah.
People dealt with it very differently. I had the moms who were just jubilant. Oh, they're gone. That didn't resonate with me because
Mm.
I like my kids, so
Yeah.
I really had a hard time when they left the nest. Be, so I had to be really careful not to let myself feel like, oh, I'm done now because I'm a mother, and
Mhm.
that part of my identity is now um it's in peril. I don't know
Mm.
what to do now.
Yeah.
I had to figure out, okay, well, what do I want to do? So I have this free time. What else can I do now?
Mhm.
What are the things that I really liked about being a mother that would apply
Yeah.
to other areas of my life? And could I look at this new phase of motherhood and reframe it in a way where my kids still need me, but they need me differently now? So
Right.
that's another common theme I see in my wise women.
No, that's great. And you're using those skills now to help people in new ways. So when you work with now your yoga students, these wise women, how does it look? What is it you're doing with them? Is it one-on-one, group classes? I know you have both, but how does that look?
Right now, because pandemic really changed the way I was doing I am
Mhm.
doing practice. I was
Mhm.
going to community centers and cancer centers too. I've taught cancer survivors,
Yeah.
but 2020 provided a new opportunity. Growth mindset,
Mhm.
intellectual, figure it out,
Yep.
resiliency. How do I pivot? I can't
Right.
just rely, if the road is blocked, where else? How can I get to my destination? Figure it out. So I did a lot of work with helping my wise women navigate online classes. And so now
Wonderful.
I have 3 online classes that I teach a
Oh.
week. 2 of them are in the chair, and
Mhm.
one of them is on and off. I call it floor, but we get up and down off of the floor with
Okay.
using a yoga mat.
Yeah.
In all three classes, we use lots of props. So I ask the women to bring blankets and pillows and
Okay.
yoga blocks and yoga straps or towels to help facilitate the physical postures. I don't believe in forcing a body to make a posture. I
Mhm.
rather encourage you to make the posture fit your body.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's another way to learn self-compassion and true self-care.
Right.
If I'm willing to push myself to the land of pain, where else am I doing that in my life? And that's what I mean. The physical practice teaches you how you treat yourself. Once upon a time in a class, I remember we were doing these arm raises
Mhm.
to shoulder height and higher. And I saw the one woman grimacing because one arm, but she was
Oh,
trying to force it up. And so I didn't call her out in front of everybody. I
yeah.
just went to behind her and I was
Mhm.
doing a little adjustment and I whispered
Yeah.
in her ear, "Why are you raising that arm like that?" And
Yeah.
she said, "Because I felt like I had to, and I just
Yeah.
feel like I should." And
Yeah.
in this comparison, because looking
Yeah.
around. And so then the opportunity was, okay, well, you don't have to do that. Give yourself
Mhm.
permission to do what your body can do.
Yeah.
I practice no strain, no gain.
Mhm.
Not no pain, no gain. No
Yeah.
strain, no gain. And start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can, because each
Mhm.
day differs too.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's what practice looks like. And there's smaller classes because the Zoom screen, I still like to give guidance. So
Mhm.
I only like a certain number, no more than 10 people per class, so that I
Okay.
can give adjustments. And the other great thing is that everyone's at home. So you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about forgetting anything. You don't have to worry about your commute. You don't have to worry about feeling tired because you've driven back and forth.
Mhm.
And it's delightful because I can actually give specific cues. I'll say, "You see that couch you have over there? You can use it to do this. You can grab that pillow over there." Recently, one of the ladies said, because I asked in the beginning of practice, "Does anybody need anything special?" Someone said, "Oh, my hands are feeling very stiff today." So I said, "Okay, everybody, go grab your favorite bottle of lotion. I'll wait."
Yeah.
And so everybody
Uh-huh.
did. And at the end of practice for our relaxation, we did a very long hand, arm, neck, and shoulder massage, self massage with the lotion.
Oh, nice. Nice. But what's great is you can teach them additional skills, something like going through a massage. If you were in a yoga studio, you couldn't do that. And something we had talked about earlier is if someone's not feeling so great or they don't want to fight traffic or just they just have no motivation to drive somewhere, this is great. They can just go on Zoom with you and do it from the comfort of their home. And also, they're likely not going to compare themselves to anyone else. If they're on Zoom focusing only on you and what you're teaching,
Yes,
they're not going to be as self-conscious or worried that they're not keeping up with the class. It's more this one-on-one interaction with you, even though you're leading a group.
absolutely. You right on the
Yeah.
head.
Yeah, that's incredible. Now, with the chair yoga, is it for certain populations? How do you determine who is appropriate? Is it just you offer it and whoever wants to join, or how do you determine someone is appropriate for that class?
So a lot of times the people that come to that class are drawn to it because they're afraid to get up and down on off the floor,
Okay.
or they have an actual condition where it's difficult
Mhm.
to do so. Because if you have really bad osteoarthritis in your knees or your hip, or
Mhm.
you're recovering from a replacement, or you're about to go have a joint replacement, then chair yoga is a good candidate. I have had lots of people with an array of conditions, whether it's scoliosis, COPD, something we don't
Mhm.
think about. COPD
Yeah.
patients who become more short of breath with too much exertion, a chair
Mhm.
yoga class is a perfect candidate. Weight
Wonderful.
issues, you don't have to worry about your weight to sit in the chair to be able to do things. Joint replacements, like I said, um, heart condition. Sometimes I have had the rare patient who comes in because of maybe they have an early diagnosis of congestive heart failure,
Okay.
or they have high blood pressure. So the posture is more of an issue. So sitting in a chair is going to help
Yeah.
uh, get rid of that idea of the up and down and moving the head in too many ways that might be dangerous. People with vertigo.
Mhm.
come to class. Those are so, and lots of arthritic
Okay.
people come to class as well.
Yeah.
But various conditions where, again, if you don't think you can do yoga, you certainly can
Yeah.
in the safety of your and here's the other thing. I still challenge you, even though it seems like, oh, it's going to be so boring. And we don't just stay sitting in the chair, and we
Mhm.
definitely challenge you. I
Good.
challenge you appropriately. Remember, no strain, no gain.
Right, right. And that's great. I mean, it's neat because sometimes we've heard of chair exercises before and you may think it is not difficult, but it's just a matter of, okay, you can use a chair in many different ways. I've had
Yeah,
many athletes where I'm using a chair and having them do a single leg squat off of this chair,
yeah,
reaching down.
yeah.
And believe me, they're squealing because they have that strain and they benefit from it. So it's, you've taken something that's in a safe situation and you've really created a new way of moving the body, in all different aspects to create strength and flexibility and movement. And it really helps people. So it's my hat's off to you. I really appreciate you sharing with us about it.
One other thing while you were talking, when you
Mhm.
mentioned the squats, something that's very important to me too, again, we're taking care of aging bodies, is being able to perform your activities of daily living. I don't take those
Right.
things for granted.
Yeah.
So it may seem like nothing or something
Mhm.
people don't think about, but I am super proud when I have a student who comes to class who couldn't get out of a chair without grabbing onto the armrest or pushing on the seat or pushing on their thighs. When they learn to get up and
Yeah.
down out of a chair without using their hands, the smiles and the joy, because
Yeah.
it's an activity of daily living, being able to get up and down out of a seat with good
Mhm.
strength, with good balance, maintaining that joint health, maintaining that lower body strength. And not to be insensitive, but quite frankly, then you're able to get up and down off of a toilet more easily
Yeah.
too.
It's
You're
true.
able to get in and out of a shower. If you want to get into a bathtub, I have all these anecdotes, but I can picture her now. One of my ladies, a while back, ran to me after class, and she said she looked like a little girl. She was beaming.
Mm.
Nadine, I can't wait to tell you, because we've been practicing so much getting up and down out of the chair. I got into my bathtub and
Oh,
out of it unassisted
oh.
for the first time in a
Mhm.
long, long time.
How precious.
I mean, that's independence. That's confidence boosting.
Yeah. Yeah. And how many times do we hear as people age, they expect pain, they expect to not be
Mhm,
able to move, they expect to get weak, they expect to get inflexible.
mhm.
And so much is re educating people from these beliefs, this mindset, this
Yes.
subconscious that has dictated they are going to end up a certain way. It just takes part of retraining someone physically is retraining them mentally and emotionally to shift their mindset so they can believe again and they realize, guess what? You have more control over how you feel and how your body moves than you actually knew or subconsciously held on to.
Mm, there's an anti-ageist rhetoric and
Yeah.
culture we experience. It's exactly like you said.
Yeah.
Expect to walk off into the sunset and not be able to take care of yourself, and
Mhm.
to be a burden and to get weak and to fall. These and you should expect to fall. That's the other thing. Oh, be careful. You're definitely going to be set up for falling as you
Yeah.
age. That's not true. If you take care of yourself, if you the other thing is, it's not just the physical body to take care of, but I also talk about common sense things. Make
Mhm.
sure you don't have a bunch of plugs laying around, or your rugs aren't tripping hazards, or think
Mhm.
about those things too when you're helping yourself. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And even going along with that is awareness, being
Mhm.
present in your current actions. So often, as we get out of elementary school, high school, and we get into adulthood, our presence is our mind is out of our body. It's so far ahead of us.
Mhm.
And our body's just this thing tagging along. And so it gets worse and worse as you get older. So with the yoga and the work that you do, I can imagine people are more present. So they're realizing things about their atmosphere or their environment in terms of plugs and cords and, rugs, anything like that, where
Mhm.
they may be more present about and, take the action to change it or even just walk around it or step over it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's wonderful. So when you are working with women, who is it an age cutoff that people come to see you, or is it just you kind of just advertise for mature women and they select themselves out?
Yeah, or it's kind of happened organically
Okay.
where the people that are attracted to doing chair yoga or want a more gentle practice or want a
Hmm.
more guided practice, if they are going to practice on the floor, which again, I have a class where we do that,
Hmm.
it's going to be in a slower, still challenging,
Hmm.
paced class. So I think I tend to attract people that, yeah, do self-select
Gotcha.
and want to do that. Yeah. Mhm.
Absolutely.
And
Do
word of
you?
mouth.
Okay. Which, yeah, that's the biggest thing. I mean, for
Mhm.
getting referrals, once you find someone that you really connect with, you want to tell all of your friends. So I understand that. So do you incorporate breath work as well with the
Oh, yeah.
yoga
Oh, yeah,
and
that's
the
part of
movements?
yeah, absolutely. Breath work is one of he is my favorite yoga teacher. He
Mhm.
framed it so beautifully for me recently. He said, "Yoga is one long breathing practice."
Yeah, makes sense.
Mhm. And
It
you know that the
I
benefits of
do.
breathing and
Mhm.
your posture and your mind, your clarity, and just being able to, people say, take a pause and take a breath, but really take a pause and take a breath and do it well. It
Yes.
really pays.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, how can people reach out to you? How can they find out about your courses, your classes?
Very easily, I have a website. It
Okay.
is www.yogi,
Mhm.
YOGIMD, yogimd.net. And I
Wonderful.
have my classes on there, my schedule. I have my social media links. I have a YouTube channel you can get to from that webpage where I do a lot of many digestible things you can do for yourself. Like one of the video series I just started is called the Yogi MD Toolbox. And what I like to do is disavow us of this or demystify and take away this myth that yoga has to be a 1 hour or 1 hour and 15-minute practice. How can you
Mhm.
take digestible little things and do them at home to feel better?
Yeah. Okay.
Something under 2 minutes, something under 5 minutes. Yeah.
Makes
So,
sense. Yeah. So you're
let's I
breaking up habits.
yes. Yeah,
That's wonderful. And we know you have a podcast as well, the
I
Yogi
do.
MD podcast.
Yes.
So I've been a guest on there. I'm very honored to be part of it and get some pretty amazing guests and people who are really making changes and contributing a lot to the world. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, and I will say that this year is a little different for my podcast
Mhm.
because I have decided to, and the pun is intended, take a microscope and go through each of those dimensions and really talk to different people about the different
Okay.
principles
Mhm.
within those dimensions of health that I started at the top of the hour discussing.
Oh, that's
So,
wonderful. Oh, that's great. Well, really appreciate it. And any last minute piece of advice or anything you want to give out before we wrap up?
don't limit yourself. You've got one life to live. Do not limit yourself by the constraints of your own narratives don't stand for digesting narratives that don't serve you. Question yourself, be curious, and really learn what it means to take good care of yourself in a multidimensional and healthy way.
That's wonderful. Beautifully said. So, thank you so much for coming on with us today. Really appreciate your time and sharing with our audience.
Thank you for having me. This is a real great honor. I have so much respect for you and the work you do too.
Thanks. And for all of you who joined us, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Take care, and we'll see you next week. Bye.